Poverty, strife, conflict, and corruption. These are common narratives on the continent. But this is another side untold, the side of wealth, riches, and the continent with most blessed resources. Until you change a man's thinking, you cannot change his life. Africa's story has been written by others. We need to own our challenges and solutions and write our stories. Only Africans can build Africa. My name is Henry Williams. Join me on the agenda on Love War Plus. Issue on the African scene, the politics of succession in Africa, the crisis of stability and power. How critical is this?
Police arrested 4 people for the violence in Johannesburg, while 8 others were arrested.
As a result of widespread poverty and conflicts on the continent, human trafficking and modern-day slavery has continued to thrive unabated in spite of efforts to stop this heinous crime. This year's World Day Against Human Trafficking spotlights the essential role of first responders. In today's edition of the show, we take a look at human trafficking, a modern-day slavery, and what can be done to actually end this crime against humanity. My name is Henry Williams. Thank you for joining me on the agenda. It's great to have you. And don't forget that you can join us at www.lovewarplus.tv or go to any of the online stores to download our app, Love War Plus. Now, to set the pace and for today's edition of the show, we'll take this report that gives us a bigger picture of what we'll be discussing on today's edition. And we will be right back. Don't go away.
Human trafficking ranks amongst the most prevalent transitional crime issues in Africa and the world at large. With imposed travel restrictions brought on by the COVID-19 debacle, it has forced new dangers upon victims who are often sold into sexual exploitation, forced labor, begging, marriage and organ removal, among other activities. The lockdown has also amplified trafficking dangers with job loss, poverty, school closures, and a rise in online interactions, opening new opportunities for organized crime groups. This transitional crime has been linked with global migration activities founded on the search for employment and self-fulfillment, rendering many societies vulnerable to crime against humanity. The perennial economic instability and structural violence in Africa has significantly impacted the growth of labor exploration. On the other hand, poverty in most countries in Africa has made many people vulnerable to sexual exploitation and child trafficking. Despite measures taken to stop this transitional crime by the African Union, the demand for trafficking of persons in Africa has not reduced significantly. Countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon and Senegal are source, transit and destination countries for trafficked women and children to Europe and Balkans as the main source for onward transfer to other countries. According to the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, UNICEF 2017 reports, children made up over a quarter of detected trafficking victims in the world, and out of this, 64% are from sub-Saharan Africa, though it has increased in recent times. This year's World Day Against Human Trafficking spotlights the essential but often overlooked role of first responders who identify the millions of victims worldwide, helping them secure justice and rebuild their lives.
All right, that report sets the pace for today's discussion on the agenda. Once again, thank you for joining us on the show. And we'll be unveiling my guests right now, and I have joining me people I highly respect, talking about the fight against human trafficking. We have with us here on the agenda today Daniel Atokolo. He's the zonal commander for NAPTIP, National Agency for Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons. Thank you, Commander, for joining us on the show. And yes, I have Evans Ufeli, an activist and also someone who's definitely in the thick of things when it comes to human rights abuses with his initiative, the Cardrill Agency Advocacy Center, a legal practitioner at that. Thank you for joining us, Evans.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
All right, talking about this issue of human trafficking, it's continued to be a bane on the African continent, a heinous crime against humanity. Many call it even modern slavery. And yes, it seems to have continued unabated. And to make matters further worse, it has been compounded by the global lockdown that was brought upon, many nations. Let me start with the commander. Mr. Daniel, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, you see, human trafficking, it's all about the exploitation of the vulnerable by the party that is stronger. We are looking at a situation where people are exploited because from the beginning, they are vulnerable. And we are looking at what are the push factors. What is it that even when people are dying, they are still going? The driving point, there are many. Well, let's look at the ignorance of the people, on the part of the people. We continue to harp on this ignorance. If people are to know that when they cross over to where they are going, things will be much worse, they will not go. The people who have gone ahead of them, or the traffickers, they have sold a particular line to them, which is a big lie, that it will be better there. They are ignorant to the extent that the resources some of them put together to travel, if they are to deploy it locally, it will change their status.
Commander, well, there's no doubt that what you do demands a commitment, demands passion, and significantly, this year's International Day, Fight Against Human Trafficking, the United Nations International Day, highlights the work of first responders like yourself,
Yes.
The people that are in the thick of things.
Yes.
What kind of commitment does it demand, to actually tackle this menace?
You need passion. You need passion to help those who are vulnerable. You need courage, because the human trafficker is not a gentleman. We go after them. Again, rescue of victims of human trafficking. That is the passion that drives us. Somebody is highly vulnerable, somebody is already in a very bad situation, they cry for help, and we go after them. We go to get them from places of exploitation.
We are told that sometimes those whom you seek to save don't actually want to be saved.
They don't want to be saved because they are ignorant. And thanks for our law. Our law is even fashioned in such a way that we don't even criminalize the victim. Even though some of them, like I would say sociologically, they are self-victimized victims. Some of them played active roles in their own victimization. But inactive, we see them as ignorant people. If a lady is to know that on this trip she's going, permit my language that maybe she's a sex worker. If she's to know that where she's going, she will be psycho-conditioned with drugs and other things, to have over 40 men a day, she wouldn't go. If she is to know that the proceeds of her endeavor will not be with her, she will not go.
Now, that's for those who willingly embark on this journey.
That is for those who willingly.
Perdition.
Yes, we have a crop of people who are just deceived. Deception fuels this crime of human trafficking. Deception. We have people who, in fact, like they are doing other aspects of our national life, like economy, people, 419ers, they project a particular image as the image of a successful person who went abroad. They are not true. All of them are part of the trafficking ring to bring unsuspecting members of public into the loop. When you get there, you now discover that things are not what you look at. As we are here, my phone rings, the agency hotline is always abused, with complaints of people who are already out. They are looking for her to come back.
We'll talk about the impact of social media in actually driving this, but let me go to Evans. Evans, you also, I can say you're a first responder. Your phone is also very busy when it comes to actually helping people who are in a fix and talking about trafficking as well. What are your thoughts on talking about this year? Where are we? How far have we come in this fight? Are we really realistic about fighting human trafficking?
Yes,
who do we hold responsible?
The NATIP is doing very well. I mean, it is not every time we look at government agencies and define their inadequacies and deficiencies. NATIP is doing fantastically well. If you look at the rates of rescue, and then the rate of intervention, the swiftness of it, and then the widespread understanding of the task at hand. It gives you a sense of a comprehensive approach to solving the problem. But you know, there's a limit to which government can go.
Okay.
The human capital, who is a victim, is required to play a role in this whole shenanigan. And that is to say that we have a lot of ignorant people. Someone comes to you and sells the story to you that once you leave your location, you get into another location, then your fortune will change. Forgetting that every environment have its own peculiarities, tenacities, and meaning. And that the forces of every environment you find yourself at, they are different. And then the environment for which you are born into have the tendency to raise your value than an environment you want to escape to, where you don't have the requisite legal status to be in that location, to be in that environment. So you think that going there will be a way to solve the problem. Now, there is a bad narrative, a construction in society that because people are poor, do you know that people, illegally, go from Nigeria to like Gambia, the Gambia?
Why would I want to go to Gambia?
People travel illegally to countries that are far below the standard of where they reside, where even the villages they live is far higher than the state capital of those countries they go to.
Why is that?
It is this escapist mentality.
Are they being chased out of the country because of the hardship? And we know people talk about the push factors. People talk about the lack of security. When you talk of security, it has different dimensions. We're talking about the security that the government has actually come into a social contract to provide. An enabling environment. You're talking about protection of lives and property. You have conflicts in different parts of the continent. These factors also, to a large extent, don't you think?
Yeah, the factors you just outlined, they are factors that are prevalent in third world countries like Nigeria. Nigeria really fall below what a country should be. That is why just an agency of government cannot solve the problem. Because the problems are cultural, they are economic, they stem from security, as we said, and there are other factors within the main factors that fuels and instigates this mentality of escapism. Sometimes the escape is an escape into a worse condition. Okay, so what I think we should recommend now is that people should develop themselves. Okay. I mean, when you say, if I get here, things will be better, how do you know that? That information stems out from the history of your ignorance. Because everything you know and the quality of your decision and thought is tied to your experience, your history, and your ignorance. So that ignorance, that history, that experience, if it is not one that is resistant enough to bear, the submerging contingencies of the future, then such victim is most likely going to run into troubled waters. Is most likely going to escape into a place where he will find more hardship than the place where he locates.
So you're saying that the lack of information or the availability of it plays a very critical role in all of this?
Of course, it plays a very critical role. What government can do, government don't need to spend all the money in the world to get the citizen properly trained and properly. If you look at the Scandinavian countries, they developed a concept in the 90s where they pump in a lot of resources in education to the people. It got to a point where their whole budget, a large chunk of their whole budget is used to train the citizen, to empower them, to make them have knowledge. And as we speak now in this Scandinavian country, there's zero crime rate in places like Ireland and Netherlands, some of the other. So what I'm trying to say is that government should use the agencies of government, the National Orientation Agency, other agencies that are tied to the same function, to get the citizen exposed to the realities of life beyond the four walls of schools. Because some of these people traveling and trafficking are professionals, are doctors, are lawyers, and all that.
All right. Commander, let's look at this menace and look at tackling it, dealing with the issues here. As your agency, making sure that and trying to curb this menace, the issue of collaboration among security agencies comes to play.
Yes.
We understand that also the porous borders plays a critical role. That is why I'm bringing this up. A lot of people walk through the borders here and there, and even during the lockdown, we've seen this happen. How is this synergy, with the agencies? Is there more to be done?
Look, at Kingston, we are having a very good relationship. We have good relationships with our sister security agencies. I'm very happy with the way you analyze the issue. Look at times something starts as irregular migration. Somebody just wants to go abroad. It dovetails into human trafficking. Because, like he has pointed out, the person has gone abroad. You that you are going abroad, what are your core competencies? What are your certifications? How prepared are you for the challenges where you are going? What is your educational level? It's not, look, as we do this job in NAPTI, we get to a level where you discover that even the information you are giving out, you need some level of education and intelligence to analyze what you are told. Then your level of education will help you to have a counter-narrative for the one that is being presented to you.
What about those who are victims in this situation, not because they wanted to travel anywhere, who have been kidnapped, who have fallen into crime rings that actually use these people for sex labor or for child labor? What do you say about that?
It is still the collaboration within the sister security agencies, even across the borders, and we are succeeding. At NAPTIP, we are bringing people back from Oman, from Lebanon, from Cairo, from Spain, all over. We are bringing them. NAPTIP is working along with the other security agencies at the other side. We are collaborating. The Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, NAPTIP, the Diaspora Commission, excellent people, working along with NAPTIP, Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the IOM, the UNODC. We are working together to ensure that the human traffickers don't have a field day. Again, you are talking about prosecution. Prosecution is another way of, it's a deterrent measure. Okay. It may be long and tortuous, but it goes a long way to stop people from doing what they are doing. We are talking about sex offenders register, something like a hall of shame. You don't want to find your name there. There are some things that prosecution is a deterrent.
Let me come in there, because people might be hearing this for the first time. I took the volition to check the NAPTIP website and to see how much information I could glean from it. And yes, going to the website, if we can have it up, I saw, I found that I was very impressed with the features that had been added, including a wide range of information about the work that NAPTIP is doing. Looking at the website, as you can see on the screen there, I also saw something very interesting. I saw past and present events to show how the fight has been taken to the traffickers. You can see all the news stories and people actually being how do you call it, rescued from as far away as Lebanon, you know, coming back to Nigeria. That was significant for me. And more than that, what really got me was convicted offenders. They actually had something on their website. It had convicted offenders. This was new to me, and I was wondering, you know, Evans, what are the legal implications of this? Is this permissible?
Of course. NATIP don't have to even put it up in their website. It's already before the courts, a public document. There's a judgment to that effect. Okay. You and I can apply for it and put it in any website.
Oh, really?
Yes. So this is what it should be. I mean, having it in NATIP website will give us a sense of understanding of the comprehensive approach to curb the problem. You see, because the human trafficking business is a huge one. Human beings are extremely intelligent. That is why we commend NATIP, because if you see the
it's organized crime.
Yeah, if you see the syndicate, if you go closer, that is why what we do majorly is to carry out awareness program to tell people you can actually, you know, be what you want to be here, okay? And even if you have to travel, you need to travel for a purpose, okay? And all that, for an assignment and all that. So it's fine that we have that registered in the website, so you can always trace it. So that if you want to employ someone into a sensitive position, you can go to the website to check whether the name exists there and whether the person has committed such kind of crime, so that you don't put the person in the borderline where he's most likely going to escape. The same thing with the sex offenders register. We should have more registers so that we can have a database that will synchronize, you know, citizens and their actions, whether they are repented or not. We should have that record for reference purposes.
That's a price they have to pay.
Yes, and this is already after judgment. I mean, anybody can apply for the judgment. You and I, anybody can apply for the judgment. So it's a public record. Okay. So if you take it and put anywhere, it's just as good as picking it from the court and put it where it will be visible.
But their photographs are not allowed to be there, because I saw on the website there were no photographs of those.
If they are convicted, if they are convicted, there's no
grounds about that.
There's no restriction. It's the person. That's the identity of the person. In fact, the photograph should come up first before the name, so that you can identify the person proper. A competent court have taken a decision on the person's.
So I believe the commander is listening, and will take that, because I'm sure people would like to see the faces behind those names.
That is the essence. A shaming hall, a hall of shame, shaming list. That is the deterrent that will stop you. If you look at the implications of what you are about to do, and you know that there's a register where you'll be featured, which is a hall of shame, you are likely to think twice before you do it. We are supposed to publish pictures because they are convicted.
Yes, because we don't see any pictures to those names. We need to see pictures to those names.
What we don't do is to criminalize victims.
Once they've been convicted.
Once they are convicted, it is a public listing.
All right, and certainly talk about trafficking. One entity that has been also in the thick of things and in the forefront of the fight against human trafficking, slavery, modern-day slavery, is the church. And when we come back from this break, we'll be joining a lady, Sister Kiyula Lesa from Zambia. She is the coordinator Anti-Human Trafficking Initiative, and she'll be sharing some of her insights in all of this. Join us again after the break.
Irreversible. We must not allow fear to stand in our way. I have fought against white domination. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
we must remember that every one of us has something to give, something to contribute. Only Nigerians can help develop Nigeria. All that we require in our nation for our prosperity, our security, our progress will come from within us, and therefore each one of us must be ready and willing to be a vital part of it.
Hello, great to have you back. You're watching The Agenda, and we're talking tackling human trafficking, the menace of human trafficking in Africa. And yes, this year's theme, United Nations, highlights the work of first responders, the huge job they are doing, working, the heroes and heroines, working, so to say, behind the scenes to make lives better for those who have been caught in the cycle of this definitely inhuman crime. Yes, we talked about church also playing a critical role, and that means we'll be joining with a lady called, her name once more, Kuyula Elesa from Zambia. She represents a coordinator anti-human trafficking initiative. Kuyula, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
All right, loud and clear. Good to see you, Sister Kuyula. It's great to have you join us on The Agenda, talking about this issue. Human trafficking continues to linger. Somehow even looks like it's thriving in spite of all the efforts to curb it. You want to give us some insights into the initiatives and what you are facing from the southern part of Africa.
Okay, thank you very much for hosting me. When I heard the two describing the situation in West Africa or Nigeria, it's pretty much the same. The same, human trafficking widespread in different parts of the country, say Zambia, but also in different parts, in different countries in the southern region with, the 10 countries. So you have people trafficked within the country, which is internal trafficking, but also across borders, to other African countries. But within the southern region, particularly, people are trafficked to South Africa. But I want to actually stress internal trafficking because sometimes we tend to focus on cross-border, and yet in some countries like Zambia and Malawi, internal trafficking is quite widespread. And so this normally involves women and children who are trafficked, particularly from rural parts of the world, of whichever areas, and exploited in the sex industry, but also in domestic servitude in towns. Now, I would also like to say that one of the factors that facilitate, especially internal trafficking, is just some of our cultural practices. And I want to pick up from the previous speaker who was talking about our culture. One good thing about us as Africans is this extended family. So you find that within that extended family, children are placed in affluent homes within the extended family system. So there is, although it is a good thing and has been practiced from time immemorial, but in the era of human trafficking, this has found, has facilitated trafficking because it's easier for me to go to my sister in the village and say, I want to take your child to school, when actually want to use her for domestic servitude. And I think that one of the things that the church especially should facilitate is dialogue on how we care about each other. Because in most cases, there is now a thin line between our cultural practice of caring for our own, our own relatives within family and human trafficking. So it needs conversation, it needs challenge, it needs the church challenging the values that we hold, particularly as Africans. I think the church enjoys a lot of legitimacy. So that thin line must really be explored because there is no question, especially people are in vulnerable situations, they do not even think about it twice when someone who's in an affluent position, when you go and say, I want to take care of your child, for them, what they're thinking of, this child is going into town, She will have access to electricity, running water, she will have access to school, and they do not even seem to follow up. And this is true not just for Zambia, it's true for Malawi, it's true for Zimbabwe, it's true for most of the African countries. And I think that this needs conversation, a lot of conversation, because when we are talking about borders, we know that our borders are porous and cross-border trafficking does happen, but we need also to focus on this, which is widespread.
All right, thank you, Sister Kiyula, there for highlighting that issue. And let me come to Evans. She's highlighted something we've seen quite prevalent, especially in these climes, the issue where you see a domestic help that was brought in from, a family member to help, because of the, back again to the economic situation. But it turns all right in the sense that that person becomes, the host becomes a slave driver. In human treatment, we've seen headlines. How do you call it? Somebody using an iron to, to deal with a young, a youth and all of that. What do you think about this?
Yeah, what I think is that we must take the game further, okay, that we must document, we must go into a new dimension where we document domestic servanthood.
Okay, servanthood.
Okay, we must domesticate it because in the first world countries, you cannot take a child which is not your biological child into any kind of operations within your vicinity without documentation and necessary approval from the authorities and the parents. Okay, you can't do that. So what we need to do, like our adoption laws, we must also take the game further to say that if you must engage a child other than your biological child in any kind of assignment, first of all, it even runs contrary to the Child Rights Act because that is domestic labor.
But help me out here, Evans. You talk about adoption laws. We have I know friends of mine who've tried to adopt legitimately, and it's been like a camel being, forced through the eye of a needle. But through the back door, children are being, given out, being taken.
I understand.
Even in IDPs, children are being sold on a daily basis.
But I understand, but you see, in as much as it is rigorous to adopt because government need to have full documentation of the child, that is what causes the delay. We must not encourage the black market of the practice of procuring children through the back door because that is where they perpetrate crime from. Okay, because listen, human trafficking, there's a huge market for it. The market is insatiable. It's a huge industry that, in fact, if we don't put measures that NATIP and every other agencies are putting up, we can as well, all of us can as well be sold out. The market can consume the entire population of this country. I'm telling you how lucrative this market is.
That is how serious you're painting it. Commander, the issue of domestic trafficking for domestic help, it's not even internal, it's also external as well. Yes. But Sister Kiyula there says she wants to highlight the internal trafficking, which is a major issue as well.
It is. Let me give you a scenario. Somebody's wife just gave birth, and they are looking for a babysitter. And what do? They start looking for some people who business is to bring children from the rural areas who will come as baby sitter. And they will promise them, you put your child to school. At times, they are even religious people. There could be evangelists and pastors itinerant people moving from place to place. And they have this confidence that is already reposed in them that they are doing God's work. But they are human traffickers. Again, what do you think propels a woman or a father to just freely give out a child? You are looking for one, they say you can take two. Having children more than you can take care of. There are things within our cultural environment and practices that predispose people to be trafficked. You have so many children you can't take care of.
Okay.
And the next thing is you are looking for who will come and even take them off you.
That's where education comes in.
So, yes. Again, look, there are some people, if you say every child must be trained by their biological parents, some kids will never go to school.
True.
They will never go to
There is
school.
an advantage.
So
There
at
is an
NAPTIP,
advantage to that.
with NAPTIP, our problem comes with how you treat other people's children, not necessarily because other people's children are with you. If you will take a child and treat that child like yours, we have no problems with you. If you will take that child and treat the child like yours, if you have the temperament to take somebody's child and make sure the child goes to school like your children, wears what your children are wearing, has the same freedom with your children, there will be no problem. We have some people who are doing very well in the world or in the country now, and they were not trained by their parents.
Good.
Along the line, they were able to do it. Sure. But the major thing is the biggest room is the room for improvement.
Yes.
The biggest, look, in NAPTIP, we're talking about collaboration.
Okay.
An effective one, partnership that works with the public, with the church, law enforcement agencies, private sector. Right. Look, you have called NAPTIP to your studio.
Everybody has a role to play.
You have called NAPTIP to your studio to sensitize. You are a help to other people.
All right. Let's go to Zambia. Sister Kuyula, did you get what my guests were talking about? What do you share their views on this issue?
On the issue of internal trafficking?
Yes, on what they've highlighted, what they've pointed out as the causes and all of that.
Yes, I do. And I would also like to add one thing that relates to internal trafficking. You know, I don't know about West Africa, but looking at Zambia and many other countries within Southern Africa, the exploitation of poor people, which may not be out of trafficking, is rampant, because we think that we can save a bit by exploiting the poor generally. So if there's exploitation which does not relate to human trafficking at all, and then there's human trafficking on the other side, people won't be able to tell now which is human trafficking, because we get used to exploiting the poor in a general sense. So this is another area that really needs to be looked at. And also, I would want to imagine that is true also for West Africa, where, you know, poor people, just because you have this person who don't have access to jobs, someone does not have access to education opportunity, just because you can give them maybe 100 naira or 100 kwacha or $10, you want to exploit them. So when people are in those exploitative situations, they won't be able to tell that when they are trafficked, they won't be able to tell that I'm actually trafficked, because they get used to that sort of thing. And in most cases, if they are very poor, women or children, or men indeed who are poor, they won't be able to differentiate. So that, for me too, needs a lot of conversation.
All right.
They also talked about, I heard them talk about migration. Obviously, we know that migration is a right, and people don't need to migrate if they so wish. But information then becomes very important, as you know, the speaker said, becomes very, very important. What kind of information should we give people? Is there dangers? Where do dangers lie in terms of migration? Because the very fact that people are migrating means that there must be an incentive. There must be an incentive for where they are going, and this incentive for where they are. So I also think that governments should be able to provide that environment where people can actually realize a good livelihood, which will serve as an incentive for them to stay.
Okay, Sister Kuyula, hold your horses a bit. Let me turn to Evans. Is it that fake news, let me put it that, wrong information spreads faster than the truth? Because you find out that most of the information coming through is not actually the actual reality on ground for those who travel, those who embark on this journey of doom. But you find out that more of the stories you hear, people hyping up the stories, and should there be a heightened information coming from the positive side to deter people too as well? Should we step that up? We have the orientation agency. Okay. Are we doing enough in terms of information dissemination to let people know how gruesome this journey could, be for their lives?
Well, that is one area where more work should be done, okay? Because the people who are finally convinced and trafficked, the victims, are usually people who have certain level of ignorance about the journey. They may not be illiterate outrightly, but they may be ignorant of the future and what that decision holds for them. So I think that government should do more, empower more people, NGOs, the government agencies, the national orientation agencies to, carry out a comprehensive orientation of our people, especially in the secondary schools, and then even in workplaces, even in churches. That assignment can also be delegated to their clergymen, okay, in the mosques, in the church, and then in other religious centers and the traditional religious centers, so that people get to understand firsthand that there are consequences for, getting yourself involved in that kind of arrangement for which you may have to have yourself blamed in the future. So let's have that. Also, let's incorporate some of these things in our curriculum.
Okay.
A way of putting it, engraving it in the mind of these people so that they can have a repellent, a resistant structure within them. So when the information comes that they are being lured into these things, they will be able to know exactly what to do, what decisions to take.
Before we run out of time, I wanted to pose this question to the commander, talking about the impact of the lockdown, the global lockdown. Reports say it has compounded the fight. It has even condemned some who are looking for ways to actually escape from the snare of those who kidnap them for slavery. Has been made even more difficult at that.
Yes, you see, people are in a lockdown situation. In Lagos here, we have had to do more of peace enforcement in some homes because people still cry to us and they cannot move. We have had some small people, house boys, house girls trying to run, and we know that they cannot even get back to their places of origin because the roads are blocked.
They are blocked.
What do? When we have this kind of information, we trace that house, and we go there and we do what we call peace enforcement. It's no more peacekeeping, it's peace enforcement. NAPTIP knows this little child is in your house. Probably she's from Kogi, she's from Benue, she's from one far-flung place. We are aware that this child is here. We want to let you know that we will hold you responsible for the whereabouts of this child. If you predispose this child to run away, we are going to help to bring the family and rescue this girl. But even because of COVID, you can't be bringing everybody home. Yeah. You are already within this area. We enforce peace in that house. And once the NAPTIP is aware, and once in a while, we send people to monitor. It's part of the way. If not, some people have been locked in the same place, and then predators take advantage and they do what they want to do to them. But excuse me, I like what you talked about, enlightenment. Yeah. At NAPTIP, public enlightenment, sensitization is what we do. Schools, we have even cascaded it to primary school levels. You'll be shocked the kind of information at the disposal of these children. We'll tell them. There was a particular girl that was saved, a 15-year-old girl that was saved because we just gave NAPTIP red card to her. Went to at that level, and they look at, if you do this, this is what happens. You see, a particular big man was trying to. Wow. That was how the man left. Fantastic. See, we need more.
You need more collaboration.
Collaboration. NAPTIP, working with market men. We go to the market, we go to motor park sensitization, we go to churches, right. Youth group, women group, men's fellowship. We go to talk to them. And other areas of giving information, town hall meetings, community dialogues, these are the things we do to keep the conversation going. Right. That human trafficking is evil, human trafficking is modern day slavery. Report, and most importantly, look, your father can traffic you. We'll let parents know. We will still prosecute you even though you are the father. We may have problem with witnesses because after a point, the victim is no more ready to test because the family environment will come and intervene. Yeah. But we don't allow people to traffic other people and because they are family members. And again, to the extent that people don't have the number of children they can conveniently take care of. It becomes a push factor. Another push factor in NAPTIP will tell you, anything that predisposes a set of human beings, set of people, to move haphazardly, all within a short period, moving in large number, like insurgency, like terrorism. These are push factors. Look, people must
like
survive.
what we have in the Kaduna crisis
That is
right
it.
now.
The moment that thing is going on, as that thing is going on, they are not going to stay. And they are moving disorderly. Or that they are moving
in a confused state.
In a confused state. They get to a particular place where, because of the tendency to continue to live, whether you are working or not, you must eat now.
Yeah.
That one becomes another driving force. Then the human trafficker comes as an angel. Hello, I want to help you. We are asking our government to try more for us. The government is trying a lot. Let insecurity
be dealt with.
let the curve flatten. If it flattens, we will do much more. People will now be able to stay where they are staying. I know of people who are trafficked just because of electricity. Somebody is a barber, is happy being in the village. No life for 6 months. He must move out.
These are situations, realities on
What
ground,
of cottage industries? Cottage industries. We bring people from abroad, you take them to go back home. The same condition that predisposed them in the first is still waiting for them.
Okay, Commander, let me go to Sister Kiyula. Sister Kiyula, tell me, how has the lockdown affected your region? I'm talking about fighting this menace. Can you share with us?
I'm going just to talk from observation because I want to believe that we haven't had any research done.
Okay.
Yeah. Lockdown in the southern region is different for each country. Like in Zambia, we haven't had complete lockdown.
Okay.
So we can actually move about, but, you know, looking at observing what we've been told by the Menace, mask up, do that, stay home and the like. But lockdown in South Africa, and looking at it from the point of view of South Africa is a main hub, if you like, within the southern region. People are trafficked from Zambia, from Angola, from Namibia, Eswatini, and the like into South Africa for labor and sex trafficking. So I want to imagine that during this lockdown, it may not just be very possible unless people are using, it may slow down. That's what I'm thinking in terms of movement. But when it comes to people who are already trapped, it becomes very difficult for them to escape.
Okay, Sister Kiyula, any experiences you'd like to share with us on this issue? What do you think are the pressing issues right now in actually making headway in this fight?
Okay, thank you very much. I think one of the pressing issues in addressing the issue of human trafficking is also corruption among law enforcers.
Okay.
You know, immigration officers, as well as the police. Sometimes they have been enablers. They have actually come across people who are traffickers, but because of because people want a standard of life, maybe that they don't have through their wages, they connive with the traffickers, and the traffickers are able to move from place to place. And if that continues, obviously, that will facilitate trafficking. This is very true in many of the countries here in Southern Africa. So if the people that should protect us are not doing their best, then that definitely is going to increase trafficking. Aside from that, so really, and also sometimes these very officials are not, do not account, like maybe governments do not put them to account. So that really should be looked at. Aside from that, I think also formation in values. I want to state again that in Africa, the church enjoys legitimacy. So the church will take advantage to form people in the values of, you know, the Christian values that hold, or indeed any other, you know, church. For example, why would a parent sell their child? There is something wrong because they are supposed to be protecting. So how can we even help people to be happy with what they have? Now, what I mean by being happy with what they have, I don't mean that people should just sit and have, if they just have a small house, you know, 10 people living in that house. That's not my point. My point is that when you make some money, when can you say this is enough? I can live a certain standard of life, because sometimes it's in looking for more and more and more that people are forced to move, because trafficking doesn't just affect people who are poor. It also affects people who just want more and more and more and more. So how can we realign those Christian values of love? I want to go back to when the Lord asked Cain, where is your brother? What was his response? Am I my brother's keeper? But for us as Christians, we should actually be saying, I am my brother's and my sister's keeper. If the church could move from, just from the head, but moving into the heart where we can say, this is my brother's keeper, this is my sister's keeper, it might make a difference. We might convert traffickers, we might also convert other people who may show greed, because greed is also one of the ways.
All right, Sister Kiyula, thank you so much. You've highlighted two things, and I want to take that as your final words, because we're on the home stretch right now. And thank you for your insights. And it definitely is a huge task to discuss this issue, because it's hydra-headed and it has so many challenges. But I certainly hope that we'll be able to take the discussion further. Thank you very much for joining us on today's edition of the show. Our Sister Kiyula there, and representing a national agency for prohibition of, I beg your pardon, coordinator of anti-human trafficking initiative. Thank you so much. And yes, turning to you, she made a indicting statement that, look, the corruption also plays a very critical role in also all of this. And can you quickly answer that question, Commander, before I pose my next question before we round off?
Of course, when impunity continues and there's no punishment, then it's bound to continue to go on. So corruption plays a role. But at the same time, officers of the law enforcers should live above board and ensure that they do the right thing. Is the worst corruption and abuse is even secondary victimization, where a girl is raped and he's looking for assistance, and some people ask her some funny questions. What did you even wear that day? Why are you there? At NAPTIP, we are not into all this, but we are aware that it could happen. Let every law enforcement agency be alive to their duty. Let us not disappoint the people that are running to us.
Gentlemen, you have to forgive me. That's much time we can take on the show. And any final words, Evans?
Yeah, I want to round up by saying that we should look also into the issue of baby factories. Because now trafficking has gone beyond even the traffic of existing child. Before even the pregnancy is conceived, the child has been trafficked already. There's an arrangement, there's a cartel that pay young ladies to camp them somewhere, bring young men to have sex with them, and then when they get pregnant, before the baby is pushed out, the baby is trafficked immediately. So we must look at that. Government must go after.
We will do that. We will do that. And there will be a sequel to this show. That I guarantee you. I hope, gentlemen, we have a commitment to this.
Can continue.
Thank you very much. We will definitely continue on phase 2 of this discussion. But I want to thank those of you who joined us, and thank my guests as well, Sister Kiyula from Zambia. And yes, my guests here in the studio, Daniel Otokolo, Zonal Commander for NAPTIP, and Evans Ofeli, Cadrell Advocacy Initiative. Thank you very much for joining me on the agenda. Well, that's where we will leave it. This 2020 marks the 20th anniversary of the Palermo Protocol to the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, the main international anti-trafficking instrument, and this year's beams the spotlight on the essential but often overlooked role of first responders who identify the millions of victims worldwide, helping them secure justice and rebuild their lives. And to them, we say a big thank you, and may God continue to protect them. But from me, it's bye for now. And do remember, www.loveworplus.tv is where you ought to be for information and everything that you need, wholesome entertainment. My name is Henry Williams. We leave you these words: only Africans can build Africa. And I leave you with this soundbite, showing that the church has a critical role in the fight against human trafficking. Bye-bye.
Following what's happening globally in the world today, it is human trafficking is second after arms deal. After arms trade, trafficking in persons is number 2. It's a billion-dollar industry that has minimum risk. But it's, minimum risk. So a lot of people delve into it. At a point in time, it was actually number 1. And so it's strange that it will be funny for anybody to pay lip service to it or not to take it seriously. Human life is sacred, and the dignity of the human person must be respected and upheld across board. And so that's why we are passionate about it, and that's why we are doing this. Amidst the political terrain, the elections around the corner, we still think it is important that we chip this in.
Issue on the African scene, the politics of succession in Africa, the crisis of stability and power. How critical is this?
Police arrested 12 people for the violence in Johannesburg, while 8 others were arrested.